Every morning across this country, millions of hardworking people drag themselves to jobs they hate, convincing themselves it's normal to be miserable 5 days a week just to enjoy 2 days of freedom. They call it being responsible. They call it paying their dues. They call it the real world. But here's the brutal truth. They're not being responsible. They're being obedient. They're not paying their dues. They're paying for their fear. And what they call the real world is nothing more than a prison built by their own limiting beliefs and reinforced by everyone around them who's too afraid to break free. The $100 bill sat on the sidewalk, yet hundreds walked right past it. That's not just a metaphor. It's a social experiment we conducted in a busy downtown area. A crisp $100 bill, clearly visible, placed right there on the ground. And do you know what happened? Over 800 people walked past it. Some even stepped over it. Only one person stopped to pick it up. Why? Because they were absolutely certain it couldn't be real. They had convinced themselves that good things don't just happen like that. That money doesn't just appear on sidewalks. That success couldn't possibly be that simple. And there, my friends, lies the first fundamental difference between those who consistently grow their wealth and those who struggle paycheck to paycheck. It's not about intelligence. It's not about education. It's not even about starting capital. It's about what you believe is possible. You see, we're gathering here today because something inside you knows there's more. Something whispers that you're capable of achieving greater things. But that same voice gets drowned out by the louder ones. The voices of doubt, of past failures, of well-meaning friends and family who told you to be realistic. Let me tell you something that might shock you. Being realistic is the most commonly traveled road to me. The wealthy aren't more realistic than you. In fact, they're often less realistic by society's standards. They see opportunities where others see obstacles. They see potential where others see problems. They see a $100 bill on the sidewalk, and instead of assuming it's fake, they take the 2 seconds to find out for sure. But here's what's fascinating, and I want you to really let this sink in. The rich don't get richer because they're lucky. They get richer because they operate with a completely different set of rules than most people do. Rules that nobody taught you in school. Rules that your parents, unless they were wealthy themselves, couldn't teach you because they didn't know them either. Think about this. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract money like a magnet, while others work twice as hard but can barely keep their heads above water? What's the difference? Is it just luck? Connection privilege? Those are the easy answers, the comfortable answers, but they're not the true answers. The truth is far more empowering, yeah, and perhaps a bit uncomfortable, because once you understand it, you can never go back to your old way of thinking. Once you see these invisible rules that govern wealth creation, you can never unsee them. Let me share something that happened recently at a high-end coffee shop. Two people ordered the exact same $7 coffee. The first person thought, this is expensive. I should really cut back on these luxuries. The second person thought, how can I earn enough to buy 1,000 of these coffees a day? Same coffee, same price, completely different mindset. The first person was thinking about conservation, how to spend less, how to cut back, how to manage scarcity. The second person was thinking about expansion, how to earn more, how to grow, how to create abundance. And this brings us to the first invisible rule of wealth. The rich don't focus on spending less. They focus on earning more. Now, I'm not suggesting that budgeting isn't important. Of course it is. But have you ever noticed how focusing solely on cutting expenses makes you feel? It creates a scarcity mindset. It makes you see limitations everywhere. It's like trying to lose weight by thinking about all the foods you can't eat, rather than getting excited about delicious, healthy alternatives and how great you'll feel once you reach your goal. You cannot save your way to prosperity. The math simply doesn't work. Even if you saved every single penny you earned, you'd still be limited by your income. The real opportunity lies in expanding your income, not just managing your expenses. But here's where it gets interesting. And this is something that took me years to understand. The difference between the rich and everyone else isn't just about actions. It's about attention. Where do you put your attention throughout the day? What do you think about when you have a quiet moment? What do you discuss when you meet with friends? Most people spend 90 of their time thinking about expenses and maybe 10 thinking about income. The wealthy flip this ratio. They spend 90 of their time thinking about how to create value, how to solve bigger problems, how to serve more people, because that's where the real money is. Remember that $100 bill on the sidewalk. The person who picked it up wasn't just lucky. They were paying attention. They were open to opportunity. They hadn't resigned themselves to the idea that good things only happen to other people. This brings us to another crucial understanding. Wealth is not just about money. Money is simply a byproduct, a result of something much more fundamental. Wealth is about creating value for others. Every self-made wealthy person I've ever met has understood this at their core. They got rich by solving problems, by making things better faster or cheaper, by creating products or services that improve people's lives, by adding value to the marketplace. But here's the part that might surprise you. The problems they solved weren't always big world-changing issues. Sometimes they just found a tiny inefficiency in a system and fixed it. Sometimes they just took an existing service and made it slightly more convenient. Sometimes they just took something that worked in one market and introduced it to another. The key is they were actively looking for these opportunities. While most people walk through life on autopilot, complaining about problems, the wealthy are trained to see every problem as a potential opportunity. Think about your daily life. What frustrates you? What do you wish was easier? What do you complain about? In each of those complaints lies a potential opportunity. But here's the critical difference. The wealthy don't just identify problems. They take action to solve them. And this brings us to another invisible rule of wealth. The rich take imperfect action while others wait for perfect conditions. You see, most people are waiting for the right time, waiting until they have more money saved, waiting until they have more experience, waiting until they're absolutely certain their plan will work. But the wealthy understand something profound. Perfect conditions don't exist. The right time is a myth. Certainty is an illusion. You know what's fascinating about human behavior? We'll spend years getting an education to prepare for success, but then we'll let one setback convince us. We're not cut out for something. We'll invest thousands in a degree, but hesitate to invest hundreds in our own business idea. We'll work 40 years at a job we don't love, but won't spend 4 years building something we do. Does this sound familiar to anyone? It should, because it's the default programming most of us received growing up. We were taught to be careful, to avoid risks, to seek security. And while those aren't bad things in themselves, they've become chains that hold many of us back from our true potential. Let me share something powerful with you. Every single day, you make hundreds of small decisions: what time to wake up, what to eat for breakfast, what to wear, who to talk to, what to read, what to watch, what to think about. These decisions are significant in the moment. But here's the truth that the wealthy understand. These small decisions compound over time to create your life's trajectory. The rich don't just make different big decisions than everyone else. They make different small decisions, and they make them consistently. If you improve just one each day, over the course of a year, you'll be 37 times better. Not 365 better, 37 times better, because of the power of compound improvement. This is how the rich think about everything, not in terms of linear growth, but exponential growth. Well, here's where most people get it wrong. They focus on the end result rather than the process. They want to be rich, but they don't want to develop the daily habits that create wealth. They want success, but they don't want to embrace the discomfort that comes with growth. The wealthy understand that success isn't about making one right decision. It's about making slightly better decisions consistently over a long period of time. Let me give you a concrete example. Two people decide they want to improve their financial situation. The first person makes a budget, cuts out their daily coffee, cancels their streaming subscriptions, and saves an extra $200 a month. Good moves, right? The second person does something different. They spend that same 2 hours they would have spent budgeting to learn about digital marketing. They spend their coffee money on online courses. They use their evening TV time to start a side business. After a year, who do you think is in a better position? The first person has saved $2,400. Not bad. But the second person has learned skills that could potentially earn them thousands more per month for the rest of their life. This is another invisible rule of wealth. The rich invest in themselves before anything else. They understand that the best investment you can make isn't in stocks, real estate, or even cryptocurrency. It's in developing your own capabilities. Because once you develop a valuable skill, no one can take it away from you. Once you understand how to create value, you can do it again and again in any market condition. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wealthy don't just invest money in themselves. They invest time, energy, and attention. They understand that what you feed grows and what you starve dies. Think about your own life for a moment. What are you feeding? What are you starving? Are you feeding your dreams, or are you feeding your fears? Are you feeding your potential, or are you feeding your comfort zone? Are you feeding your future, or are you feeding your past? The way you answer these questions not just with words, but with your daily actions, determines whether you're on the path to wealth or the path to continued struggle. Here's another truth that might be hard to hear. Your current financial situation is a direct reflection of your past thoughts, decisions, and actions. And your future financial situation will be a direct reflection of your current thoughts, decisions, and actions. This isn't about blame. It's about responsibility. Because once you accept responsibility for where you are, you gain the power to change where you're going. The wealthy embrace this responsibility completely. They don't blame the economy, the government, their boss, their parents, or their circumstances. They understand that while they can't control everything that happens to them, they can control their response to everything that happens. And this brings us to another crucial difference. The rich see money differently than everyone else does. Most people see money as something scarce that needs to be hoarded and protected. The wealthy see money as abundant and as a tool for creating more value. Most people see spending as losing money. The wealthy see strategic spending as investing in future returns. Most people work for money. The wealthy have money work for them. These aren't just philosophical differences. They lead to completely different actions and, consequently, completely different results. Think about how you view money. Do you see it as a scarce resource that's hard to come by? Or do you see it as a natural result of creating value for others? Do you believe there's a limited amount of wealth in the world, and that if someone gets rich, they must be taking from others? Or do you understand that wealth can be created, that the pie can grow, that everyone can win? Your answers to these questions. Your money mindset determines your financial destiny more than any external factor. But here's the exciting part. Mindset can be changed. Just like you can train your body to be stronger, you can train your mind to think differently about money and success. The wealthy didn't start out thinking the way they do now. They learned to think this way. They train themselves to see opportunities where others see obstacles. They train themselves to take action where others hesitate. They train themselves to persist where others quit. And if they can do it, so can you. But it requires something that most people aren't willing to give. It requires you to be uncomfortable. It requires you to challenge your existing beliefs. It requires you to question everything you think you know about money, success, and wealth creation. Let me share something that might change the way you think about success for us. The wealthy aren't succeeding by accident. They're following specific patterns, making specific choices, thinking in specific ways, and these patterns are learnable. But here's the catch, and this is why most people stay stuck. Learning these patterns requires you to unlearn what you think you already know. It requires you to question your most basic assumptions about how the world works. For example, most people believe that hard work leads to success. But look around. Do you see a direct correlation between how hard people work and how wealthy they are? Some of the hardest working people I know barely make ends meet, while others who seem to work less earn substantially more. This isn't because hard work isn't important. It absolutely is. But the wealthy understand something crucial. It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter, it's about leverage. Think about this. If you get paid by the hour, there's a natural limit to how much you can earn, no matter how hard you work. There are only so many hours in a day, but what if you could create something once and sell it multiple times? What if you could use other people's time, money, or resources to multiply your efforts? How can I have everything they do? They're constantly asking themselves, how can I create more value with less effort? How can I solve bigger problems for more people? How can I use leverage to multiply my impact? Let me give you a real-world example. Two people start businesses. The first person opens a local consulting practice, trading their time for money. They work hard, build a good reputation, and make a decent living. But their income is limited by the number of hours they can work. The second person creates an online course teaching the same skills. They spend 6 months working hard to create excellent content. But once it's done, they can sell it to thousands of people simultaneously while they sleep, while they vacation, while they work on their next project. Same knowledge, same expertise, completely different approach to leveraging it. This brings us to another invisible rule of wealth. The rich build systems, while others build jobs for themselves. Most people think about earning more money by doing more work. The wealthy think about creating systems that generate money whether they're working or not. This isn't just about passive income, although that's part of it. It's about understanding that true wealth comes from owning and controlling systems rather than being part of someone else's system. But here's where it gets really interesting. These systems don't have to be complex. Sometimes the simplest systems are the most profitable. The key is that they solve real problems for real people in a scalable way. Think about the most successful businesses. At their core, they're all systems for solving specific problems. The bigger the problem they solve and the more people they solve it for, the more valuable they become. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but I don't have any special skills. I don't have any unique ideas. I don't have the resources to build systems. Let me challenge that thinking for a moment. Every single person in this room has unique experiences, insights, and abilities. Every single person here has solved problems that others are still struggling with. Every single person has knowledge that others would pay to learn. The wealthy don't have special powers. They just have a different perspective on what constitutes an opportunity. Here's a powerful truth. The thing you take for granted about yourself might be exactly what others are desperately seeking. The problem you've already solved might be the very thing keeping someone else up at night. But most people discount their own knowledge and experiences. They think if I can do it, anyone can do it. They don't realize that their ordinary is someone else's extraordinary. This brings us to another crucial difference between the wealthy and everyone else. The rich understand the power of positioning. Two people might have the exact same skills, the same knowledge, the same work ethic. But one positions themselves as an expert, as a problem solver, as someone who can create value for others. The other positions themselves as just another worker, just another service provider, just another face in the crowd. Guess who earns more? Guess who gets more opportunities? Guess who builds wealth faster? It's not about bragging or pretending to be something you're not. It's about understanding your true value and communicating it effectively to those who need what you have to offer. The wealthy understand that perception creates reality. They understand that how you position yourself determines the opportunities you attract and the value you can command. But here's the part that most people miss is positioning isn't about what you say. So what you do, it's about the value you create. It's about the problems you solve. It's about the results you deliver. You can't position yourself as an expert if you're not constantly learning and improving. You can't position yourself as a leader if you're not willing to take responsibility. You can't position yourself as successful if you're not creating real value for others. This brings us to another invisible rule of wealth. The rich focus on value creation before value extraction. Most people are obsessed with making money. The wealthy are obsessed with creating value. They understand that money is simply a byproduct of value creation. Think about this. Every time you get paid, it's because you've created value for someone. Every time you make a profit, it's because you've solved a problem for someone. Every time you earn interest or dividends, it's because you've provided value through your capital. The more value you create, the more wealth you can accumulate. It's that simple and that profound. But here's the key distinction. The wealthy don't just create any value. They create scalable value. They find ways to create value once and deliver it many times. They build assets that appreciate over time. They develop systems that generate value automatically. And most importantly, they understand that value creation isn't just about products or services. It's about transformation. The most valuable things in the world are those that transform people's lives for the better. Take a moment and think about your greatest struggles right now, your biggest challenges, your most pressing problems. Now ask yourself this, how many other people are facing the same struggles? How many would pay to have those problems solved? The wealthy understand something profound. Your greatest struggles often contain the seeds of your greatest opportunities. The problems that frustrate you the most might be exactly the problems you're meant to solve for others. This is where most people get stuck. They wait for permission. They wait for validation. They wait for someone to tell them they're ready, they're qualified, they're good enough. The wealthy don't wait for permission. They take initiative. They understand that the world doesn't reward people for what they know. It rewards them for what they do, what they know. This brings us to another invisible rule of wealth. The rich take action while others take notes. Have you ever noticed how many people are perpetual learners but never actually do anything with what they learn? They attend seminars, read books, watch videos, take courses, but never translate that knowledge into action. Knowledge without action is like having a library of books but never opening them. It's potential without power, it's possibility without reality. The wealthy understand that learning is important, but implementation is everything. They don't just consume information, they apply it. They don't just gather knowledge, they use it to create value. But here's the part that might surprise you. The wealthy don't wait until they feel ready. They don't wait until they have all the answers. They don't wait until they're certain of success. They understand that clarity comes from engagement, not from contemplation. They know that the best way to learn is by doing, that the fastest way to grow is through action, that the surest path to success is through rapid implementation and adjustment. Think about this. Every successful person you admire started before they were ready. They started before they had all the answers. They started before they were certain of success. They simply started, and then they adjusted based on feedback. They learned from their results. They evolved based on real-world experience rather than theoretical knowledge. This brings us to another crucial understanding. The rich fail differently than everyone else. Most people see failure as final, as proof that they're not good enough, not smart enough, not destined for success. The wealthy see failure as feedback, as data that helps them adjust their approach, refine their strategy, improve their execution. Let me share something powerful with you. Every successful person has failed more times than most people have even tried. The difference is they didn't let failure define them. They let it refine them. Think about this. If you're not failing, you're not growing. If you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing your boundaries. If you're not getting rejected, you're not aiming high enough. The wealthy understand that success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about failing forward. It's about learning from every setback, growing from every mistake, becoming stronger from every challenge. Here's where it gets really interesting. The wealthy don't just accept failure. They plan for it. They expect it. They budget for it. They build it into their strategies. They understand that success is rarely a straight line. It's a series of attempts, adjustments, and improvements. It's about getting up one more time than you fall down. This brings us to another invisible rule of wealth. The rich make decisions based on where they want to be, not where they are. Most people make decisions based on their current circumstances. They let their present situation dictate their future possibilities. The wealthy make decisions based on their goals, their vision, their desired future. Think about this. Every decision you make is either moving you toward your goals or away from them. Every choice you make is either expanding your possibilities or limiting them. The wealthy understand this at a deep level. They know that today's decisions create tomorrow's reality. They know that current choices shape future opportunities. But there's the key distinction. They don't just think about immediate consequences. They think about compound effects. They consider how today's decisions will impact their lives not just tomorrow, but next month, next year, next decade. Most people make decisions based on immediate comfort or convenience. The wealthy make decisions based on long-term consequences and opportunities. This is why they're willing to be uncomfortable now for the sake of comfort later. This is why they're willing to live like others won't for a while, so they can live like others can't forever. But here's something crucial to understand. This isn't about sacrificing happiness today for success tomorrow. It's about finding joy in the process of growth, fulfillment in the journey of improvement, satisfaction in the pursuit of excellence. The wealthy understand that true happiness doesn't come from having what you want. It comes from growing to the person who can create what you want. This brings us to another profound truth. The rich don't just build wealth. They build themselves. They understand that their net worth is directly tied to their self-worth, not in terms of ego or arrogance, but in terms of their capacity to create value, solve problems, and serve others. Think about this. Every skill you develop, every capability you enhance, every piece of knowledge you gain increases your potential to create value. And the more value you can create, the more wealth you can accumulate. But here's where most people get it wrong. They focus on external acquisition before internal development. They want the trappings of success before they've developed the traits of success. The wealthy understand that outer success is a reflection of inner growth. They know that you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. You don't get what you wish for. You get what you work for. You don't receive what you desire. You receive what you deserve.